Are you working hard every day but still worrying about money? Have you ever wondered why the rich keep getting richer while the poor and middle class struggle to break through? The book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Part 1 by Robert Kiyosaki offers you the answer. Not through empty theories, but through a completely different way of thinking about money. In this video, you'll discover the key lessons the rich use to control money, create assets, and most importantly, achieve real financial freedom. Watch until the end, because sometimes just one idea can change the way you make money and live, starting today. Chapter 1. The Rich Don't Work for Money. Robert T. Kiyosaki opens the book with a vivid childhood experience, the moment he began to recognize the difference between the rich and the poor. It wasn't about numbers or possessions, but about mindset and how each group interacts with money. The story begins when Robert was just 9 years old. Alongside his best friend Mike, he dreamed of becoming rich. The two boys even tried melting lead to make their own coins, a naive and clumsy attempt by children who didn't understand the law, but one that clearly showed their intense desire to make money from a young age. When Robert's biological father found out, he explained the act was illegal and advised him to learn to build wealth the right way. However, his real father, the one Robert later called Poor Dad, couldn't offer concrete advice, as he himself was stuck in the financial loop of the middle class. In contrast, Mike's father, whom Robert referred to as Rich Dad, didn't have a high level of formal education but possessed a unique financial mindset. He was the first to plant a foundational financial truth in young Robert's mind: the rich don't work for money. From that point on, Robert and Mike began receiving training from Rich Dad in an unusual way, working at his store for a meager wage, just 10 cents an hour. It wasn't a job meant to earn money, but a vital part of a greater lesson. When Robert became frustrated and angry over the hard work for little pay, he complained to Rich Dad. And that's when the first and most important lesson was revealed. If you work only for money, you'll become a slave to it for life. Rich Dad explained that most people let emotions dictate their financial behavior. They fear having no money, so they work, get paid, and spend. And when the money runs out, they work again. It's an endless cycle of fear and greed. Fear of being poor drives them to work. Once they get paid, greed pushes them to spend. Then fear returns, and the cycle continues. This, Robert later calls the rat race. What's striking is that most people don't even realize they're being controlled, not by a boss or a job, but by their own emotions, fear and desire. They don't pause to observe, to analyze, or to learn. They don't realize there's another option: learning how to make money work for them rather than spending a lifetime working for money. To push Robert out of his comfort zone, Rich Dad didn't raise his wage. He lowered it to 5 cents an hour. This was a shock meant to jolt Robert into asking, "Why am I working so hard for so little?" And from there, he began to understand what Rich Dad wanted to teach him. Money should never be the ultimate goal. The real goal is freedom, and to achieve financial freedom, one must change the way they think about money. Rich Dad continued by teaching Robert a core truth. Wage earners often get stuck in the belief that working more means earning more. They tie their self-worth to their paycheck, thinking higher income equals better financial security. But in reality, when income increases, so does spending, leaving them unable to accumulate assets. Instead of building passive income through assets, they rely solely on active income, which disappears if the job disappears. Rich Dad never encouraged Robert to avoid work or look down on labor. On the contrary, he wanted Robert to see work as a chance to learn, observe how money flows, and recognize opportunities. The rich don't work for the paycheck. They work to gain experience, knowledge, and insights others miss. They learn to spot investment opportunities, create assets, and make money move intelligently. The heart of Rich Dad's lesson is this: develop independent thinking. Don't let emotions drive financial decisions. Instead of reacting like the majority, work, earn, spend, stop and reflect. How can I earn without depending on a job? How can I make money work for me? A vivid example came when Rich Dad let Robert and Mike work for free. After some observation, they noticed that old comic books were being discarded weekly. Instead of complaining, they collected the comics, set up a mini library at home, and rented them out to other kids for a small fee. Each week, the library brought in steady income without requiring Robert or Mike to be present. This was a simple but powerful example of letting money work for you, a clear demonstration of investing and creating passive income. Through this experience, Robert saw the fundamental contrast between his two fathers. Poor Dad represented the traditional mindset: go to school, get a stable job, earn, save, and hope for a safe retirement. Rich Dad was different. He valued financial education above all, constantly learned about investing, taxes, businesses, and how money works. Most importantly, he controlled his emotions and financial behaviors. He didn't let himself get swept up in the money game. Chapter 1 ends with a powerful warning. If you don't learn to control money, it will control you for the rest of your life. Don't let emotions dictate your financial actions. Learn to observe, think, and act like the rich, even if you don't yet have money. Chapter 2. Why teach financial education to children? At the start of this chapter, Robert raises a critical question. Why don't schools teach us about money, something so essential for life? We spend over a decade studying math, literature, and history, yet we graduate with almost no understanding of how money works. The result: generations of people who work hard, earn money, but don't know how to make it grow, and live paycheck to paycheck their whole lives. Robert points out that most parents can't teach their kids about money because they themselves were never taught. Schools focus on academic and professional education, not financial education. So even brilliant doctors, engineers, and lawyers may still struggle financially simply because they don't understand how money flows or how to build wealth. This is why Robert strongly emphasizes: it's not how much money you make that matters, it's how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. Financial education should start early, and it must begin at home, especially if the school system fails to provide it. And it's not about teaching children to chase money, but to understand its nature, how it moves, how it can be multiplied, and how it can either work for you or trap you. To explain this point, Robert contrasts his two dads again. Poor Dad believed in hard work, job stability, and saving money. He thought the government and companies would take care of loyal employees through pensions and benefits. Rich Dad, on the other hand, taught Robert that relying on others for your financial future is dangerous. The world changes, economies fluctuate, and if you don't have financial intelligence, you'll always be vulnerable, no matter how high your income is. Robert also highlights a common trap. When people start earning more, they tend to spend more, not invest. They upgrade their house, buy a new car, or take on more debt, thinking they're progressing, when in fact they're just locking themselves deeper into financial dependency. This lifestyle inflation becomes a golden cage, comfortable but impossible to escape. That's why teaching financial literacy to children is more important than ever. Children should learn early the difference between assets, things that put money in your pocket, like investments, rental properties, businesses, and liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket, like car loans, expensive gadgets, or a house that costs more than it earns. Most people think their home is an asset, but unless it generates income, it's actually a liability. This simple misunderstanding causes millions of people to mismanage their finances without realizing it. Rich Dad's view was clear. The key to wealth is learning to buy assets and reduce liabilities. This mindset must be nurtured from childhood before bad habits and limiting beliefs take root. Robert also shares that true financial education includes understanding how taxes work, the difference between earned income and passive income, how to manage risk instead of avoiding it, how to use money as a tool, not a goal, and most importantly, how to keep learning. Rich people continue to study money, markets, and investments. They don't assume they know it all. They stay curious, informed, and proactive. One of the most powerful quotes in this chapter is, "The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth." That's why Rich Dad encouraged Robert to never say, "I can't afford it." Instead, he taught him to ask, "How can I afford it?" A small shift that turns a statement of limitation into a question that activates the brain to think creatively and find solutions. This chapter ends with a call to parents, teachers, and all of us. If we want our children to thrive in the future, we must equip them with financial intelligence now. We must teach them to think like investors, to observe the world with a critical eye, and to take control of their financial destiny rather than blindly follow the old path of study hard, get a good job, work for money, retire poor. The future belongs not to those with the most degrees, but to those with the most adaptable minds and financially intelligent decisions. Chapter 3. Mind Your Own Business. One of the most foundational lessons Robert Kiyosaki learned from his rich dad was this: don't just work to earn a living. Work to build your own assets. This is a mindset rarely taught in schools. Most people grow up believing that having a stable, high-paying job is the pinnacle of financial success. But in reality, living paycheck to paycheck, even with a high income, traps them in an endless cycle of earning, spending, and borrowing. Robert shares that as a child, he used to think everything would be fine if he studied hard and landed a good job. That's also what his biological father, a well-educated man, always advised him. But Rich Dad taught something different. Learn how money works and use that knowledge to build your own business. This doesn't necessarily mean quitting your job or starting a large company. Your own business can be anything that generates income. Real estate, stocks, a small shop, or even intellectual property. A common mistake many people make is believing they're building a career, when in fact, they're just helping others get rich. When you work for a company, you're growing someone else's business. When you borrow to buy a house, you're generating profit for the bank. When you pay income taxes, you're funding the government. You work hard, but the real wealth flows to your employer, your lender, or the tax system. The rich understand the difference between earned income from work and income from assets. They don't rely on just one income stream. They create multiple streams from the assets they own, whether it's rental properties, dividends, or businesses. Even while they sleep, money continues to flow into their accounts. Robert emphasizes a crucial distinction. A job provides income for living, but only investing that income into assets can lead to financial freedom. So whenever you earn money, don't rush to spend it. Ask instead, how can I use this money to buy something that will make me more money? Robert paints a vivid picture of the middle-class trap. When they get a raise, they immediately increase their lifestyle. A new car, a bigger house, fancier vacations. It feels deserved, but in truth, they're falling into the consumer trap. Their expenses grow in line with their income, so they remain dependent on their salary, never truly building wealth. In contrast, those with financial intelligence use their raises to invest in stocks, rental properties, or their own small business. Only after these investments begin producing reliable income do they upgrade their lifestyle. The key difference lies in the sequence of priorities. Average people spend first, then invest what's left. The rich invest first, then spend what's left. Another powerful insight Robert shares is this: no matter your job or profession, you can still build your own business. An office worker can invest in index funds monthly. A teacher can write books and earn royalties. A tech employee can run a side hustle, like an online store, without quitting their job. You don't have to leave your job, but you do need a clear mindset. What are you investing in? What asset are you building? If you don't have a clear answer, chances are you're just working to fulfill someone else's dream, not your own. Robert also explains the benefits of setting up a small business, even legally, like forming an LLC limited liability company. This structure offers many advantages: better expense management, tax optimization, asset protection, greater flexibility for investments. Most importantly, it creates a clear separation between personal income and business cash flow, a move that wealthy individuals take seriously. Robert shares a true story. A woman who worked full-time as an accountant started setting aside $300 a month to buy stocks over 10 years. At first, friends mocked her, saying the amount was too small, but as the stock value grew, her wealth multiplied. She reached financial freedom not through her salary, but through quietly and consistently tending to her own business. Rich Dad always said, "Working hard is good, but if you're only working for others, you're limiting your own potential." What you truly need to learn is not just your professional skills, but how to make money work for you. Study finance, learn investing, understand tax law, learn how to manage and grow a business. So no matter what your job is today, you're also building control over your financial future. Financially intelligent people are not passive. They know what they're accumulating, where their money flows, and what their long-term goals are. They don't trade freedom for a sense of stability. Instead, they build real stability upon the foundation of financial freedom, driven by assets, not salaries. This chapter closes with a powerful reminder. Mind your own business. Don't let your time, energy, and money be consumed solely by the cycle of work. Spend, rest. Save your best effort for building lasting value through real assets, financial knowledge, and a clear investment strategy. True freedom doesn't come from how much money you have today, but from the income-generating assets you've built, the ones that keep working for you even when you stop working. Chapter 4. The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. One of the most overlooked differences between the rich and the poor isn't how much they earn, but how they understand and use the law, especially tax law. In this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki takes readers back through history to reveal how taxes, originally created to target the wealthy, gradually became a tool that burdens the poor and middle class, while the rich learn to use it to their advantage. Robert shares that his biological father, his poor dad, emphasized the importance of paying taxes. To him, paying taxes was a sign of civic duty, and those who didn't pay their fair share were seen as unethical. In contrast, the rich dad believed that taxes are a game, and those who understand the rules win. To him, legally minimizing taxes was not cheating, it was a sign of financial intelligence. A surprising fact Robert highlights is that income tax for individuals didn't always exist. Historically, only businesses and large merchants were taxed. Ordinary citizens were exempt. But over time, governments skillfully restructured laws to normalize taxing everyone. Ironically, they did so under the banner of taxing the rich to benefit the poor. Initially, most citizens supported this idea. They believed taxing the rich would create a more just society, but over time, the rich, armed with legal knowledge and the use of corporations, found lawful ways to significantly reduce their tax burdens. Meanwhile, the middle class, who typically lack businesses and tax knowledge, ended up shouldering the greatest burden, paying income tax, consumption tax, property tax, and various fees. That's why one of the greatest strengths of the rich is not just making more money, but keeping more of what they earn. They understand that tax systems are designed to favor business owners and investors. When you own a business, you deduct expenses before paying tax. When you're an employee, tax is deducted before you get to spend what's left. Here's a clear example. An employee earning $1,000 is taxed first, leaving them with maybe $700 to spend. A business owner earning the same amount can spend on rent, office supplies, marketing, seminars, and only pay taxes on the leftover profit. Thus, with the same income, a business owner keeps more, and it's entirely legal. This doesn't mean only entrepreneurs benefit. Investors, especially in real estate and stocks, also enjoy favorable tax treatment. Income from dividends, rental properties, and long-term holdings is often taxed at a lower rate than wages. The wealthy know this and structure their financial strategies around it. Robert emphasizes, if you don't understand tax laws, you're playing a game in which you don't know the rules, and you'll keep losing. That's why financial intelligence is not just the ability to make money, but also the ability to protect and grow it through legal knowledge. One of the most valuable lessons Robert learned from Rich Dad was smart people hire smarter people. This means you don't need to be a tax expert, a lawyer, or an accountant yourself, but you must know enough to identify experts, trust them, and work with them effectively. The wealthy never play alone. They have teams of lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors to help them optimize every part of their financial life. Robert points out that many in the middle class avoid hiring accountants because they think it's an unnecessary expense. They avoid legal help out of fear of getting into legal trouble. But in reality, it's this lack of knowledge and professional support that costs them dearly, in higher taxes, poor investment decisions, and lifelong dependence on their jobs. The rich, on the other hand, view the cost of hiring professionals as an investment. They willingly spend thousands of dollars per year on tax advisors, smart investing, and structured financial planning. In return, they save even more, avoid legal risks, and eliminate hidden inefficiencies that others overlook. One of Rich Dad's repeated sayings in this chapter is, "The government doesn't really want you to be rich, but the rules are there, and those who understand them will win." That's why Robert insists. To become financially free, it's not enough to just learn how to make money. You must learn to read the rules, understand the system, and structure your finances like the wealthy do. When you do this, you stop being a passive player. You gain control over your cash flow, plan your taxes wisely, and invest in ways that maximize your returns. You no longer fear taxes, you understand them, and even collaborate with the system. This marks a major leap in mastering personal finance. This chapter isn't about avoiding taxes or cutting corners, quite the opposite. It encourages you to be informed, to use the law wisely, and to protect your family by knowing your rights. The rich aren't rich because they cheat. They're rich because they play smart and play by the rules. They invest in education, systems, and businesses, and use legal tools to safeguard their success. That's why the strongest advice from this chapter is, if you're serious about financial freedom, start learning about the tax system, how to form a business, and how to work with experts. Once you understand these elements, money won't be something you fear anymore, because you'll be playing a game you actually know how to win. Chapter 5. The rich create money. One of the most profound differences between the rich and everyone else doesn't lie in what they have. It lies in how they think. The rich don't wait for opportunities. They create them. They are not limited by circumstances. They find ways to rise above them. They don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "How can I create the money for it?" This is the core mindset Robert Kiyosaki conveys in this chapter. The rich don't rely on wages. They create money through creativity and action. From a young age, Robert was taught by his rich dad, never say, "I don't have money," because that statement shuts your brain off. Instead, ask, "How can I make the money?" This creative question forces your mind to think, to tap into intelligence, and to notice opportunities others overlook. The questions you ask determine the way you live, and over time, they determine whether you become wealthy or not. Most people associate money with wages. They believe that to earn more, they must work harder, get promoted, or find a higher-paying job. But Robert points out that this is only a narrow slice of the financial world. In reality, the rich don't depend on earned income. They create money by understanding how money works and using that knowledge strategically. Robert emphasizes that financial intelligence is not about academic degrees or formal economics education. Financial intelligence is the ability to see opportunities where others see risk, to turn problems into advantages, and to maintain a lifelong habit of learning how money operates in the real world. Those with high financial intelligence can turn small amounts of capital into large investments, spot market gaps others ignore, negotiate better deals, build efficient systems, and retain more of what they earn. One of the most important habits of the wealthy is continuous learning and knowledge upgrading. They read financial news, study investing, follow markets, seek advice from experts, and train their strategic thinking. In contrast, many financially struggling individuals focus only on their job skills and neglect to build financial knowledge. They may be great at their professions but clueless about assets, taxes, investments, or cash flow. As a result, they remain dependent on jobs for a lifetime. Another key point Robert stresses in this chapter is the distinction between emotions and logic in money matters. Those without a strong financial foundation often make emotional decisions: fear, greed, or confusion. They panic sell in downturns, gamble on get-rich-quick schemes, and fall prey to hype. The rich are different. They control their emotions and don't let feelings dictate their financial choices. They always have a plan, follow a strategy, and assess risk based on real data. Robert shares a story about spotting a house undervalued because the owner needed to sell quickly. Most people saw it as a bad asset, but Robert saw value. He negotiated a low price, rented it out for positive cash flow, and sold it years later for a substantial profit. This wasn't luck. It was the result of market understanding, smart valuation, negotiation skills, and emotional control, all traits of someone who creates money. It's worth noting that creating money doesn't require a large starting capital. In fact, many wealthy people started with small amounts, but they knew how to circulate cash flow, use financial leverage, collaborate with others, and reinvest profits. They don't let money sit idle. They make it work. They treat money like a loyal employee. If it's not working, it's being wasted. The mindset of money creation is closely tied to calculated risk-taking. The rich aren't afraid of risk. They manage it. They do thorough research, keep learning, and most importantly, they know how to allocate capital wisely. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. They don't invest in things they don't understand, and they always keep a reserve fund for the unexpected. This is bravery with a foundation, not reckless gambling. Those who create money don't wait for opportunities. They actively generate them. They ask the right questions, seek the right information, and take action while others are still hesitating. More importantly, they view everything through the lens of assets. Does this decision help me build an asset? Will it generate positive cash flow? This kind of thinking is rare among average people, who are often trapped in consumer habits and short-term thinking. The final message Robert delivers in this chapter is this: everyone has the potential to create money if they are willing to learn and change how they think. No one is born an investing or business expert. The wealthy have made mistakes, lost money, and learned from their failures. But they didn't stop. They let those lessons guide them to success. The mindset of, "I don't have money, so I can't," is the biggest barrier. Once you replace it with, "How can I create money?" a world of opportunities will open up before you. Chapter 6. Work to learn. Don't work for money. One of the most profound lessons Robert Kiyosaki learned from his rich dad was this: the purpose of working should not be just to earn money, but to learn. In today's society, most people work to receive a paycheck, to secure stability, or to climb the career ladder. But Rich Dad set an entirely different standard. Work to develop skills, to understand how the world operates, and to prepare for a future of freedom, free from dependence on wages. Robert recalls the time he left the Marine Corps. With his military experience and education, he could have easily landed a well-paying job. But instead of choosing a high salary position, he took a job selling copiers. Many thought he was crazy, giving up a military rank and steady path to go into sales. But to Robert, this was a strategic decision. He wanted to learn how to sell, one of the most essential skills for becoming a successful entrepreneur. In school, we're often encouraged to specialize, study one field, pursue one career, and go deep in that niche. However, Rich Dad had a different view. To be a business owner, you need to understand many areas, from sales and marketing to financial management, leadership, and market analysis. If you only master one field but don't understand how the entire system functions, you'll always end up working for someone else, no matter how excellent you are. That's why Rich Dad didn't advocate climbing the ladder within a company. Instead, he encouraged going wide to accumulate a diverse range of skills. People who move up to high positions often become stuck there. They're dependent on their salary and status, too afraid to leave and pursue something greater. Meanwhile, those who learn a broad set of skills gradually become independent. They can start their own businesses or invest effectively without needing anyone to pay them a wage. A major emphasis in this chapter is on the importance of sales and communication skills. Robert argues that these are two of the most avoided yet most critical skills in the worlds of business and investing. No matter how smart you are, if you don't know how to sell, how to present your value, persuade others, and communicate clearly, you'll struggle to succeed. Money doesn't automatically go to people with great ideas. It flows to those who can articulate, negotiate, and connect. Robert encourages people to seek out jobs where they can learn the skills they're currently lacking, not just the ones that pay the most. If you're weak in financial management, work in the finance or accounting department. If you're unsure how to talk to customers, try working in sales. If public speaking scares you, learn how to present in front of groups. These roles may not pay much in the short term, but the learning they offer will repay you many times over in the long run. A major problem Robert sees in society is that too many people are stuck in the mindset of working for a paycheck for life. They're afraid to learn new things, to work outside their field, and to take risks. They stick to what they know, stay in their comfort zones, and resist expanding their capabilities. Ironically, this pursuit of stability becomes the very obstacle that prevents them from achieving financial freedom. In contrast, wealthy individuals are often those who have worked many different jobs, explored various fields, and continually sought to learn, regardless of their age or stage in life. Rich Dad once said, "The poor work for money, the rich work to learn how to create money." This is a complete shift in mindset. When you work to learn, you're not limited by your current income. You're focused on building the ability to create value in the future. You'll proactively develop your skills, embrace new challenges, and accept difficult jobs, not for the paycheck, but for the growth they bring. One vivid example Robert shares is his experience in network marketing. Though controversial, he insists it was an incredible environment for learning how to communicate, sell, lead a team, and overcome fear of rejection. The lessons he learned there became the foundation for his success in business and investing, things traditional education and office jobs never taught him. Robert also cautions that intellectual pride can sometimes be a barrier that prevents smart people from acquiring new skills. Many highly educated individuals with impressive degrees refuse to take on jobs they consider beneath them, like selling, serving, or engaging with strangers. Yet in reality, those seemingly simple jobs build the ability to read people, manage emotions, and deal with real-world situations, things no textbook can teach. The key takeaway from this chapter is mastering diverse skills is the foundation for building a business, investing wisely, and achieving financial freedom. Instead of chasing the highest-paying job, intentionally choose roles that help you become a more complete version of yourself. Treat every job as a classroom, where you accumulate knowledge and skills to prepare for major breakthroughs in your future. At the end of the chapter, Robert leaves a powerful message. True freedom belongs to those who possess enough skills to never depend on any single job. They can make money in many ways, are not bound by job titles, and are not limited by industry. And to reach that level of freedom, they must start by learning, not through theory, but through real-life experience. Chapter 7. Overcoming Mental Obstacles. One of the biggest reasons most people never become wealthy isn't about their circumstances, education, or how much capital they have. It lies in the psychological barriers within themselves. In this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki breaks down 5 common mental obstacles that he believes prevent many people, even those with financial knowledge or opportunities, from building real wealth. The first obstacle is fear. Fear of losing money, fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of making mistakes. These fears are natural human instincts. However, Robert points out a critical truth. Rich people are afraid too. They have the same worries as anyone else. The difference is they face those fears and take action anyway. They don't let fear control their decisions. In contrast, poor people often allow fear to paralyze them. They procrastinate, hesitate, avoid risk, and ultimately stay stuck in their familiar comfort zones. Robert emphasizes that the most successful individuals are often the ones who have failed the most, but they learned from those failures and kept moving forward. He shares that he once lost millions of dollars in investments, but those losses didn't destroy him. Instead, they became valuable lessons that made him a wiser investor in the future. If you want to be wealthy, you must accept risk, and that means you'll make mistakes. But mistakes are not failure unless you stop trying. The second obstacle is pessimism or self-doubt. Many people are presented with opportunities, but instead of seizing them, they only see the risks. They think, this probably isn't for me, or it's too complicated, or I'm not smart enough. This mindset keeps them from ever getting started. The rich think differently. They may not know everything at first, but they believe in their ability to learn and improve. They take action even when they're not fully prepared, and they learn through doing. The third obstacle is laziness, not in the sense of avoiding work, but in avoiding thinking for themselves. Many people are extremely busy with daily tasks, but never take time to reflect on whether their work is actually leading to financial freedom. They use busyness as an excuse to avoid the truth that they're working hard but going nowhere. In contrast, the rich take time to think strategically, evaluate options, and constantly adjust their path to reach their goals. The fourth obstacle is bad habits. Robert highlights that our financial behavior is largely shaped by habits we developed early in life, spending money as soon as we get it, not tracking expenses, emotional shopping, not investing in learning, delaying savings, etc. These seemingly small habits, over time, create a widening gap between the rich and the poor. To change your financial outcome, you must change your habits, from your mindset to your daily actions. The fifth and final obstacle is arrogance, particularly the arrogance of ignorance. Robert sees this as the most dangerous of all. Many people would rather say, "I already know that," than humbly learn something new. They'd rather save face than admit they know nothing about investing or finance. They'd rather argue or ignore advice than acknowledge someone else knows more. But in the world of money, arrogance will cost you dearly. The wealthy are always humble learners. They listen, they stay open, and they let wisdom, not ego, guide their actions. Robert believes that overcoming these mental obstacles marks a turning point, from the mindset of an employee to the mindset of an investor. You cannot reach financial freedom if you're still afraid of losing money, unwilling to learn, or unable to control your emotions and habits. These lessons are not taught in school. They must be learned through experience, through failure, and through self-awareness. One of the most practical ways to begin breaking down these barriers is to take action, even small ones. You don't need to buy property right away or make large stock investments. You can start by reading a finance book, tracking your expenses for a month, or investing a small amount just to observe your emotional responses. Each small step builds courage, self-understanding, and gradually dismantles those invisible psychological limits. Robert concludes with this insight: money doesn't solve psychological problems. You must solve them yourself first. Otherwise, no matter how much money you acquire, you'll continue to live in fear, anxiety, and the cycle of spending, working, and worrying. But if you dare to confront yourself and overcome those internal barriers, you'll gain more than wealth. You'll gain confidence, freedom, and true control over your life. Chapter 8. Learning to Harness Power. In this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki discusses a deeply influential element on the journey to wealth: power. But he's not referring to physical strength or political authority. Instead, he talks about the power of knowledge, leverage, and choice. This kind of power doesn't make noise, but it has the ability to completely transform someone's financial life. The power used by the rich is often invisible to the eye, yet it generates assets, cash flow, and control over life. Robert begins with a clear statement. Knowledge is power. But not just any kind of knowledge, it's applied knowledge that creates results through action and decision-making. In the financial world, those with knowledge have the power to control assets, optimize taxes, use legal systems to protect their interests, and seize opportunities others overlook. This isn't academic theory, it's real-world understanding of how money moves and grows. An average person might work hard all their life and never become wealthy, while someone else, with the same amount of capital but with financial intelligence and strategic thinking, can build lasting assets. The difference lies in the ability to use financial knowledge as power. Understanding assets, cash flow, investment strategies, tax laws, and business structures, these are the true weapons in the financial game. Next, Robert dives into a special kind of power, leverage. Leverage is a tool that allows you to achieve more with fewer resources, if used correctly. In finance, leverage comes in many forms: financial leverage, borrowing money to invest; human leverage, collaborating with those more skilled than you; time leverage, having others work for you; and technological leverage, systematizing or automating processes. The rich use leverage wisely. They don't try to do everything themselves. They don't rely solely on their own money, and they always look for ways to multiply results by sharing work and spreading risk. Robert offers a practical example from real estate. Suppose you have $10,000. You could buy a small rental property, or you could use it as a down payment and borrow $90,000 from a bank to buy a $100,000 property. In the second case, you're using financial leverage to control a much larger asset. If the property generates positive cash flow, you're earning not just from your own capital, but also from borrowed funds. This is how the rich grow wealth rapidly, something those unfamiliar with leverage miss entirely. However, leverage is a double-edged sword. Used recklessly, without knowledge or risk management, it can bankrupt you faster. So true power doesn't come merely from using leverage, but from the wisdom to control it. The wealthy continuously learn to sharpen this skill. They invest in knowledge, mentorship, and real-world experience before using high levels of leverage. Another form of power Robert emphasizes is the power of choice. Every day, people make financial decisions, sometimes small ones, like buying something unnecessary or postponing investment learning. These choices may seem harmless, but over time, they shape your financial destiny. A common trait among the wealthy is that they take initiative in decision-making. They don't let circumstances or other people make decisions for them. Robert shares that whenever he faces a business or investment opportunity, he doesn't ask, "Do I have enough money?" Instead, he asks, "Am I willing to learn what's needed to manage the risk?" This mindset allows him to pursue bold opportunities, while others remain stuck in hesitation due to fear or lack of information. Choice is power, but only if you take full responsibility for it. He also draws a clear line between reacting and acting intentionally. A reaction is when you let the market, emotions, or social pressure dictate your move, like selling off stocks after hearing bad news, or buying property just because someone said it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Intentional action is based on information, knowledge, and long-term goals. The rich are intentional actors, not reactors. They don't follow the crowd, they stay ahead of it, grounded in deep understanding. Another key point in this chapter is the power of relationships. Robert emphasizes that the wealthy often build strong networks: financial advisors, accountants, lawyers, investment partners, business collaborators. They don't try to get rich alone. They understand that major success requires collective effort. On the other hand, many poor or middle-class individuals try to do everything by themselves, which not only limits their growth, but also increases the risk of costly mistakes due to lack of perspective. The key to using power effectively, according to Robert, is a self-directed commitment to learning. No one hands you power. You must build it yourself through study, action, mistakes, and reflection. There are no shortcuts. No get-rich-quick formula can replace solid understanding and long-term discipline. The more you learn and act, the more power you accumulate, and it's a kind of power no one can take away from you. Robert closes the chapter with a powerful reminder: you are stronger than you think. The issue isn't how much money you have today, but whether you're willing to learn, take action, and stay committed to building your own power. The rich weren't born powerful. They built their power day by day through discipline, knowledge, and determination. Chapter 9. The Wise Create Opportunities. In this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki reveals a crucial truth that many people overlook. The rich don't wait for opportunities. They create them. This is one of the most fundamental differences between the mindset of the rich and the poor. Many people believe financial success comes from luck, timing, or knowing the right person. But what Rich Dad taught Robert is that true luck is the result of careful preparation combined with swift action. Robert begins by challenging the common mindset of, "I don't have opportunities," "the market isn't favorable," or "others have better conditions than I do." He states that these excuses are the clearest signs of someone who lacks proactiveness and responsibility for their financial life. The wealthy, by contrast, always ask, "Where is the opportunity? How can I turn this disadvantage into an advantage? What creative approach can I use to generate income from this situation?" One concrete example Robert shares is how he and his wife, Kim Kiyosaki, began investing in real estate when they had very little money. Instead of waiting until they had enough capital, they found ways to create value for sellers, negotiated skillfully, leveraged loans, and sought out hidden opportunities that others ignored. While many people search for perfect properties, Robert and Kim looked for mispriced assets, run-down homes, urgent sales, or overlooked listings. This ability to see hidden value is a skill to be developed, not an innate talent. Robert emphasizes that opportunities are often disguised as risks or problems. Most people see risk and walk away. The wealthy see risk, then dig deeper, analyze it, and find ways to turn risk into leverage. When markets crash and others panic sell, the wealthy quietly buy undervalued assets. When economies shake, many retreat, but the wealthy use these times to expand their portfolios or start new ventures. A key aspect of opportunity creation is market awareness and analysis. Robert believes that wealthy people train themselves to spot trends, evaluate information, and make decisions quickly. They don't get paralyzed waiting for perfect data. They move when the odds are strong enough. This is a form of financial intuition built over time through learning and experience. On the other hand, those who avoid learning or lack real-world practice usually only see the surface and end up missing opportunities that were right in front of them. Robert also presents a compelling shift in mindset. The rich don't think, "What can I do with this money?" but rather, "How can this money make more money?" That investor's mindset leads them to look for value creation even with just a few $100s. They don't spend money until they've made sure it can't first be turned into an asset. This thinking allows them to find investment potential in small things, from a flyer, a neglected plot of land, or even a story shared by a friend. In addition, Robert highlights the role of creativity in business and investing. Opportunities don't always lie on the surface waiting to be grabbed. Sometimes you must create the market, solve a problem others ignore, or connect resources in new ways. This ability comes only to those who dare to think differently, take calculated risks, and keep learning. The wealthy don't follow beaten paths. They test new business models, innovative financial structures, and technology to optimize asset performance. Another crucial point is speed of execution. Robert stresses that opportunities don't last forever. You need the ability to make decisions fast and act decisively when the signals are right. Many people miss out because they hesitate, overanalyze, or fear failure. The rich don't act blindly. They analyze enough to identify potential, then accept controlled risks. More importantly, they act first and adjust later, instead of waiting for everything to be perfect. Finally, Robert encourages readers to develop the eye of an investor. This doesn't come overnight. It requires you to constantly ask questions, visit real markets, follow financial news, talk to experienced individuals, and most importantly, start small. The more you engage, the more you'll begin to see what others can't. And that's the most valuable skill in opportunity creation. Robert concludes by affirming, the rich aren't born with better conditions. They're simply more proactive, quicker to act, and more persistent in finding and creating opportunities. In the world of money, no door is left open in advance. But the person who knocks long enough, the one who dares to push heavy doors, and the one bold enough to build their own door, they are the ones who walk the path to true wealth. Chapter 10. Teach others and you will receive more. In this final chapter, Robert Kiyosaki introduces a profound yet often underestimated principle on the journey to wealth. If you want to receive more, learn to give. Specifically, he emphasizes that sharing financial knowledge not only benefits others, it also helps you solidify, deepen, and sustainably develop your own financial mindset. Robert begins with his personal experience. After years of learning from Rich Dad and going through his own successes and failures in business, he realized that every time he taught others the lessons he had learned, he ended up understanding them even more deeply himself. Teaching, writing, and mentoring aren't just tools for inspiring others. They are powerful methods of discipline and self-growth. When you teach someone financial thinking, you're forced to organize your thoughts, simplify complex ideas, and reflect more critically on your own understanding. He is especially clear about one point. Sharing financial knowledge is not about teaching people how to get rich quickly. It's about helping them develop the right mindset around money. That means helping them distinguish between assets and liabilities, understand cash flow, learn to think independently, and ask the right questions. In a world where most people are taught to work hard without understanding how money actually works, those who can spark financial awareness in others are incredibly valuable. Robert also introduces a powerful life principle. The one who gives the most receives the most. This is true in business, in personal relationships, and especially in the realm of finance. Poor people tend to cling tightly to what they have, money, information, opportunities, because they're afraid of losing it. In contrast, the wealthy are often generous with what they know and have, because they understand that true value comes from flow, not hoarding. He illustrates this with how he and his wife, Kim, spent time mentoring friends, colleagues, and even strangers in personal finance. They didn't gain any direct profit from this, but those efforts generated high-quality relationships, partnership opportunities, and most importantly, trust. Trust, he says, is an intangible but immensely powerful asset in business. Giving value freely is one of the most effective ways to build a strong and lasting personal brand, whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or employee. Furthermore, when you teach others, you're constantly pushed to stay updated and refine your knowledge. This is something all successful people do. They never stop learning because they know that knowledge is an asset that only retains value when it stays relevant and is actively applied. Teaching makes you accountable for your knowledge. You're not just learning for yourself, but also to guide others. This makes you think more deeply, act more strategically, and grow more quickly. Robert also reminds readers that teaching doesn't have to mean formal instruction. It can be as simple as teaching your children how to save and invest, sharing a valuable article online, discussing a business opportunity with a friend, or just asking the right question at the right time to make someone reflect. Sharing can be simple, but its impact can be profound. Most importantly, teaching helps you retain the mindset of a learner. When you think you know everything, you stop learning, and that's when you limit yourself. But when you teach with humility, You're open to learning from the questions, feedback, and perspectives of others. This mindset keeps you humble and always growing, a core quality for maintaining lasting wealth. At the end of the chapter, Robert affirms that true wealth isn't just about the number in your bank account. It's about your ability to create value for yourself and for others. It's about the freedom to choose and the positive impact you leave in the lives of others. If you want to go further, faster, and deeper on your financial journey, share that journey with others. When you help someone take their first steps, you're also reinforcing and expanding your own path. Robert closes the book with a heartfelt call to action. If you truly want to learn how to become rich, start by teaching others. This, he says, is not only the fastest way to learn, but also the most beautiful way to live. So you've just gone through the core wealth-building mindsets that Robert Kiyosaki shares in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Book 1. What the rich teach their kids about money that the poor and middle class do not. There are countless messages and lessons packed into this book, but if you were to keep just 3 key takeaways, let them be these. First, only buy assets, because assets work for you, while liabilities keep you working for money your entire life. Second, learn to make money work for you. Don't spend your life chasing a paycheck. And third, invest in your financial intelligence. It's the only asset no one can take from you, and the more you use it, the more valuable it becomes. If you found these lessons helpful, consider sharing this video to spread this positive, empowering financial mindset to more people. And remember, the journey to financial freedom doesn't begin with a windfall or a perfect plan. It starts with a simple shift in how you think about money. Let that shift begin today.